Hello, my name is Karen Hughes, and I am the Domestic Violence Clinical Services Coordinator for the Life Crisis Center. And I want to welcome you to Life Crisis Today. At the Life Crisis Center, we do a lot of things, and we also have different months where we celebrate different things, and we focus on different subjects. Today's subject we're going to look at is child abuse awareness. And with me is one of our child therapists, Joy Gibson-McIntire. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, child abuse. It's not an easy topic to talk about.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No.
Let's start with talking about what is the definition of child abuse.
That's a great question. So a definition of child abuse is anytime a parent or caregiver either intentionally or unintentionally acts to cause harm to a child, and that there's different forms of child abuse, and then there's a separate category called child neglect too.
Okay. So what are the different categories?
So there is child physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional, verbal, and neglect.
Okay. Okay. So if I am having some children, or I notice some children, I'm having access, playing with them, or just being aware around them, what warning signs would I see, or could I see, that might indicate that there's child abuse in their life?
So there's often a number of warning signs. Sometimes there's none at all, but usually there's warning signs. So with child physical abuse, there are often physical signs in the child, such as broken bones, lacerations, contusions, bruises. There's a whole host of physical symptoms that can indicate that a child's being physically abused. Repetitive bruising in the same area, and kids wearing clothes that are trying to hide particular areas where bruises might be.
How about the verbal emotional?
So verbal and emotional abuse presents in the child often as a child's isolated, they're very sensitive to rejection, they're often very afraid of a particular person sometimes, they're often afraid of criticism and take things to heart very easily. It's different than physical abuse or sexual abuse, but oftentimes there's multiple types of abuse happening at a given time.
Right. Right. Also, like a change in a change.
Yes.
Sometimes that's just an indication.
Yes, behavioral changes is often, almost always, I guess you can't say 100% always, but almost always an indication that there's something going on within that child's life.
Yeah.
Sexual abuse is another category of child abuse, and almost always, again, can't say 100% of the time, but almost always there is behavioral indications that something's occurring. So such as like a child may have been, kind of a quiet child, and now that child's aggressive. There's also, if the kid used to be outgoing and now they're real introverted, those are big.
The drastic changes,
Drastic changes in behaviors, yeah.
Any other signs for sexual abuse?
Yes, there's a lot of different signs that could be possible. Any type or with like genital scarring, any types of bleeding, refusing to go to the bathroom, refusing to get undressed. There's also other behavioral indications too, such as bedwetting. A lot of times we'll see regression in a child's behavior. So they could have been, a child who could formerly have been potty trained is no longer potty trained. Other indications would be around specific people, that they might be very hesitant to be around one person in particular. When you see a lot of avoidance behavior with kids, that's often a red flag in general. If they're unwilling to go to somebody's house, if they are expressing any type of concerning behavior altogether, you know.
right. Any sexualized behaviors with sexual abuse that they'll present with?
Yes, often there's sexualized behaviors with children. So
what does that mean? Because not everybody understands how we know what that means, but
yes.
Other people might not.
So like masturbation could be an indication. Another indication could be being sexually or attempting to be sexually active with another child, or just inappropriate sexual behavior towards an adult or towards a child that doesn't seem developmentally appropriate, or knowledge of sexual activity that is beyond their developmentally appropriate age,
right,
and stage of development.
Yeah. How about unusual signs? Are there any unusual signs that can show up?
Yes. So that's a good question. So often we see that children who've experienced child abuse have a lot of symptoms that are very consistent with like ADHD. So ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So oftentimes they're very hyperactive. Not always, but that it's often a feature of it. A lot of times they have difficulty concentrating in school. They have difficulty with being able to remember things, recall. With school, there's a lot of times there's just issues with being able to be present in the moment, dissociating, which kind of not being able to stay present with what they're learning in that moment. They're always kind of zoned out, or a lot of pay attention, little Johnny kind of thing.
Right. So, as an adult,
yes,
and if I want to help, what should I do? How can I help a child?
So, as an adult, it's imperative to be able to, if you have any concerns about the child's behavior, if there's anything that they're doing that makes, raises red flags in your mind, like this doesn't seem right, don't hesitate to ask. And there's ways that you can ask that wouldn't put the child on the defensive. So like open-ended questions, something maybe like, I noticed you seem a little bit down lately. Let's talk about, what's going on. Can you tell me a little bit about, like, how's things going at home? Like those sorts of questions.
Right. So is there anybody that if I needed to call or talk to somebody, where would I go? Who would I talk to?
That's a great question. So it's always a good place to start with the child's pediatrician. If you're talking to a parent who is, non-offending, it's always a good idea to talk to them to see if they can let the pediatrician know, or talk to the pediatrician yourself, if possible. Another good place to start is with the Department of Social Services. They have a specialized line just for concerns about child abuse, neglect, those types of things. And they will ask you questions, kind of walk you through the process of what their information they need.
Yeah, they collect certain information from
yes, exactly. And always, if ever it's like you really feel that child's an immediate risk, let's say they're in school and they're saying that they're going to be hurt when they're going to go home, like don't hesitate to call the police, because they would be like the first line intervention in an immediate risk type of situation.
Any resources?
Yes, so there are lots of resources. First off, Life Crisis Center is an excellent resource. We have a range of services that we do to help victims all together, and we have specialized counseling with for children who have been victims of abuse. There is also a number of different websites that I always recommend. One of them is Stop It Now. Another one is the American Professional Society of the Abuse on Children. Another one is a Child Abuse Prevention Network, Child Welfare Information Gateway, and another one is the International Society for the Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect.
Wow, so there's a lot out there.
Yes.
So if it's a parent that's a child came to them and told, or they're suspecting their own child is being abused, or me as a caregiver for a child, or somebody I'm just in the neighborhood and worried about a child.
Right.
There are resources out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not always easy to do, but it's so necessary to help this child.
Right.
To not be abused anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, because you might be the only person that acts on behalf of that child.
Right.
So if it's something that's concerning, don't hesitate.
Yeah.
Because the faster intervention can occur, the more likelihood that the child will be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's always you too, and then the other child therapists.
Yes.
That they can get the help that they need for the healing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Joy, I want to thank you for coming today and sharing this information. It's kind of scary if a parent is thinking that their child's being abused, or knows of another child that's being abused. What do I do and how do I help? Mm-hmm. And I think you shared that information. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I want to thank you for joining us. Do remember that the Life Crisis Center has a lot of things we can help with. The first line is our hotline. It is there. If you just have some questions and not sure what to do and where do I go and who do I call and what are those phone numbers, the hotline can help you with that. And that number is 410-749-HELP. Again, the number is 410-749-4357. If you don't like to talk and you just want to text, we do have a text to chat, and that number is 898-211. You do have to put in your zip code to make sure you get the correct 211 service. We also have a website, www.lifecrisiscenter.org, that's available to you, and just give us a call and we will help you. Thank you for joining us. I also want to thank PAC 14 for making this show available. Thanks.